Uh, Welcome back to Casual Folks. This is episode 8. The Empire Strikes Back. Just wanted to give you guys a quick roundup of this week's market activity. You can characterize this week's activity by volatility driven by trade uncertainty. A lot of earnings came out in the past 2 weeks, so investors have been watching the earnings very closely, and really volatile cryptocurrency prices. Investors are also keeping a keen eye on economic data and potential shifts in the Federal Reserve's policy. Market sentiment is heavily influenced by shifts in tariff policies, which President Trump and his administration have been touting, and they've been using that as a huge negotiation tactic against, unfortunately, a lot of allied nations. But announcements regarding tariffs, particularly those related to automobiles, are causing significant market swings. There's a chart that I'm going to put up that you should be seeing right now. Index level revenue exposure to U.S. percentage of total revenue. So this is revenue generated from trade from the U.S. as a percentage of these countries' GDP. So before we go deeper into this, it seems a lot of people are confused why the current administration feels so strongly about reworking the current landscape for global trade. Well, this chart that I'm sharing right now is a recent analysis of our trade partners that benefit from trading with the U.S. And it's a percentage of total revenue. So Canada, the U.K., Germany, France, Mexico, and Japan as a percentage of revenue exposure to the U.S. And you can see that it's not peanuts, it's huge chunks of their overall revenues coming from the US. And this next chart that I'm showing is from LSEG. This is going to show what portion of their GDP that revenue is attributed to. So those same countries as a percentage of their GDP over a 10-year period, like Germany, South Korea, Mexico, as the chart shows, the UK, Canada, all over 30% from exports, tied that into their dependence on revenue sourced from the United States. And you can quickly conclude they don't have much footing to stand firm against the US requests for fairer trade practices. Now, I don't want to say, I actually want to stay away from the politics associated with the fact that because of the fact that these companies are our allies, they're friendly countries. But you can't ignore it. So they've long been U.S. allies, and from a geopolitical and not economic perspective, it creates a lot of volatility, and it's absolutely going to create resentment in these nations. My personal opinion is that most of these tariffs don't stick, because most of these countries can't stomach a 30% haircut to their GDP. Some obviously will, kind of fuck around and find out kind of thing, but most won't. Agreements will be made to encourage more investments in America, more manufacturing, and more jobs. So long-term gain for a short-term pain. And to be more specific, if we take the automotive sector, for example, known for its ridiculously complex supply chain mix that was created initially to circumvent and reduce costs associated with labor and tariffs. If you look at the Anderson Economic Group, they expect costs for regular crossovers to increase by $4,000, and electric vehicles may in some cases go up in price by $12,000. That's a lot of money. With the bigger issues being that the average cost of a car has already risen by 20% in the span of 5 years to an average of $50,000. So we've already seen huge price inflation in this sector of the market, in the automotive sector. And vehicles are already, in most cases, very expensive, outside of the reach of working class Americans. And then on top of that, due to these tariff disputes, if some of them stick, we could see even higher prices in the next, 12 to 18 months. This means that basically you can extrapolate that the automobile upgrade cycle is going to lengthen. Unit sales will fall as US automakers try to pass on these higher prices to us, the consumers. And we might even see a shuffle of skilled labor in the automotive industry as international players increase their investment in America and US automakers reduce their output due to higher costs, increasing competition for talent and pricing. Now, that's the best case scenario, and that's me saying it that way doesn't mean that that's how quickly it'll work out. There's going to be a period where the cars are going to be expensive, and these new factories, these big players who have pledged all these as a result of the tariffs through negotiations, because that still has to happen, that's yet happen, but they're going to pledge to invest in the US, which means that it'll take time for them to build their factories and ramp up production to get to the point where the American people can start to get some type of relief from these investments. But it should lead to the skilled labor in the automotive industry. It should lead to competition for talent and also adjustment in prices, because now all these new players that are entering the market are going to be manufacturing their vehicles locally, which means that they're going to be providing thousands of jobs to Americans, probably the same talent that our automotive industry currently, the American-made vehicles, those companies like GM, they're going to probably, and Ford, they're going to reduce staff. So we might get layoffs in the more recent future, and then we'll see these investments pay off, and these people will then get jobs in other and competing companies, and then due to that competition, we'll see prices come down and wages go up as they're seeking. There's more competition for talent in that industry. So there are benefits, and we're going to see less quantity in the short term. So less quantity, but hopefully we'll get more quality vehicles being produced from GM and Ford, and more vehicles will be made in America, and costs will, like I said, eventually stabilize. Will the uncertainty created by the tariffs hurt the US and global stock markets? Absolutely. That is unfortunately the short-term knock-on effects of these types of trade negotiations. Win-win is the goal, but usually the compromise sometimes contradicts the political promises of these countries' leaders, making it more difficult for them to come to agreements that logically should happen faster. So we might see that type of tug of war in the short term, but eventually everyone will come to the table because nobody wants to pay higher prices for anything. And there's another chart here from Goldman Sachs that's gonna be on the screen. In this chart, we can see that just how bad the S&P 500 reacts to the announcements of tariffs. So Goldman Sachs estimates that if these tariffs stick, we could see about a 2% correction on earnings per share, and about a 5% drawdown on the S&P 500. So companies are gonna guide for lower revenues and earnings per share for the rest of calendar year 2025, which is gonna have, and they estimate, about a 5% effect on the overall share prices of the S&P 500. This shift in sentiment is also showing up in the earnings in the earnings forecast for these companies, for U.S. companies, and will obviously have some short-term pain in the markets as well. Cryptocurrencies, moving on to cryptocurrencies, a recap for this week, have also been experiencing volatility, but and as you can see in the chart that we're showing up at the time of recording, Bitcoin is and has recaptured $90,000, and its dominance is hanging around 60% of the entire crypto space. This type of volatility is more of a feature than a bug for the crypto space, since they are 100% sentiment driven. I also look at its relationship with the US dollar strength, and not specifically relative to the Dixie, but in terms of sentiment. So with the current administration's strong stance on reducing waste, strengthening the border, and driving policies with the intent to pay down the debt, Bitcoin's relative relevance shrinks as the sentiment around the dollar strengthens. So it's a give and take relationship, which is not a bad thing for the people working for dollars, because this means you can get more Satoshis for every dollar. Moving on, the S&P 500 and the Dow Industrial Average are down at the time of recording 1.28% for the week so far today. Just keep in mind that we're making this recording on a Thursday. And that's it for this week's recap. Last week, I mentioned I'm super excited about where technology is heading, and I said it's clear that we are in a period of rapid advancement and innovation. I myself didn't realize how much of an undertaking it would be to discuss some of these advancements in one video, and I don't like the idea of doing 20-30 minute videos anymore, especially by myself. So I'll be splitting up our discussion over the course of a few episodes where we can take deep dives into each one of these sub-points that I'm going to make coming up here. And I just want everyone to know that I'm going to rely heavily on feedback from you in terms of which topics you want me to go deeper into, and if you disagree with anything that I'm saying or that I've said, then I'd love for you to give your feedback as well. So the first thing is going to be the ascendancy of artificial intelligence, which I kind of touched on last week, but more in depth is AI's pervasive integration. AI is no longer a futuristic concept. It's being woven into the fabric of everyday life, from personalized experiences to automated processes. And we're seeing that in search. We're seeing that in people being able to utilize large language models to assist them in writing papers and writing books and creating in the creation of novels, anything really. It's a huge support to major creative industries right now. So we're seeing significant advancements in generative AI, which is transforming, like I said, the creative industry and software development. Now, writing code doesn't have to be as cumbersome as it was before. There's also a focus on AI infrastructure, so I would love for us to discuss that as well. The demand of powerful computing resources to support AI is driving massive investments in data centers and specialized hardware, as evidenced by the activities of companies like NVIDIA. Now, specifically, NVIDIA is currently doing huge spends on research and development, especially around their Blackwell chip. And that's something I would love for us to talk about as well, because NVIDIA is a huge focus as a part of my investment philosophy and the future of my portfolio. And this also includes development of efficient and sustainable AI models. AI's impact on the workforce, I'd love to talk about that as well. There's a growing emphasis on AI literacy and the need to adapt to a changing job market. And AI is transforming how we learn and develop skills, obviously, with personalized and adaptive learning experiences becoming more common. Now, I'm even seeing that at my work, that while there is an encouragement behind using AI to help with efficiency and productivity, there's a bigger issue around it where it's plagiarism, and also the dark side of it where AI is being utilized by corrupt forces, hackers, to to steal data, to phish data using malware. And I recently read in an article that there was a Disney employee who fell for this. He downloaded a language model that he wanted to test out, and actually I think it was a generative AI model that he wanted to test out to do imaging, to generate images for him. And he downloaded it from GitHub, and it turned out that it was malware, and some of his data was stolen, and that gave the hackers access to his work information. And long story short, he ended up getting terminated, and a lot of Disney secrets around certain projects that they were planning in the future was leaked. Next, I also want to focus on advances in computing and hardware. So quantum computing is a huge thing. While it's still in its early stages, quantum computing has the potential to revolutionize fields like medicine, material science, and cryptography. I'm especially focused on learning more about how it can either assist in securing cryptographic chains, or in jeopardizing the security behind cryptographic chains. That's definitely something I want to look deeper into, and I hope you guys are interested in that as well. There's some semiconductor advancements as well. Continued innovation in semiconductor technology is crucial for powering AI and other advanced technologies. Investments in chip manufacturing, like those from TSMC, are vital. So looking at TSMC's recent public statement that they'll be investing $100 million into developing and building a fab manufacturing station in the United States, that's a big deal. So looking at that and looking for more information coming out of there as well, in terms of their partnership with the US government, especially how contentious it is right now in Taiwan, with China looking to advance on Taiwan for this very same reason, because the future is technology. Edge computing, this is a really interesting thing as well. Processing data closer to the source is becoming increasingly important for applications like autonomous vehicles and the Internet of Things. This one particularly is great because I've actually utilized Google's IoT products, especially their cameras that do facial recognition and also voice recognition. Those are all edge computing. Those are all things that are done on the device end and processed on the device end, which is huge and requires a ton of computing. And that's something that I would like to look into. I think HPE is actually one of the biggest players in edge computing at the moment. And again, NVIDIA plays a huge part of this because they're the ones that are advancing the chip manufacturing in the Internet of Things space. The evolution of connectivity. This is the third point I'd like to get into, and this will probably be episode 11. So continued 5G and future 6G developments. Faster and more reliable connectivity is enabling new applications and experiences, from immersive virtual reality to advanced industrial automation. The expanding of IoT because of the connectivity, because connectivity is a huge part of the Internet of Things. The proliferation of connected devices is generating vast amounts of data and creating new opportunities for automation and optimization. Tesla's full self-driving, their FSD system, requires a ton of computing on the edge, where the cameras are receiving the information and having to process it locally on the device, which is the automobile. The faster they can process that, and the faster those vehicles could communicate with Tesla software, the better. So all of these, the connectivity of all of these devices are going to be very important to the build out of the future, and how the physical world interacts with the digital world. The fourth thing is the intersection of technology and biology. This is also something that I'm very curious about, and you can see this especially in genomics. So biotechnology and genomics, advances in these fields are leading to breakthroughs in personalized medicine, drug discovery, and disease preventions. There's also bioinformatics. The use of computational tools to analyze biological data is becoming increasingly important, especially in the diagnostic stage. If you can give a small sample to a computer that's using advanced artificial intelligence to formulate a diagnostic faster than a doctor can, that would be huge in say, healing the sick, and even coming up with cures for different types of cancers. I've seen this happening. It's slow and it's very expensive, but CRISPR Therapeutics is a huge example of a company that's making leaps and bounds in this space. So to kind of like summarize and some important considerations for the future, the continuation of the series, these group of videos where we're focusing on all this technological advancement, is I also want to look at the ethical implications. So as technology advances, it's crucial to address the ethical implications of AI, data privacy, and other emerging technologies, and what would be considered, data that is required to be secured. For some people, it's as just their first and last name. Even that should be secretive. That shouldn't be data that they can get. And what kind of system can we develop? Will people who take part in these different networks that accumulate huge amounts of data, like Meta and Google, people who interact with those networks with their different products, who provide them really important data that they're using to create systems that we will enjoy? Will we ever be paid for these for this data, or how would they be able to use it? Do they have to get our permission first? How would that work? If we wanted the data to be deleted, do they have to? Will they do it? Those are all questions that I want to explore, and the EU has settled a lot of this already, and they have programs in place to make sure that their citizens that are part of the European Union are very protected against this type of data harvesting. I also want to look at the sustainability aspect of it too, the environmental impact of technology, because that's a growing concern, and there's a need for more sustainable computing and manufacturing practices. For example, this was a huge thing behind Bitcoin's rise to where it is today. It was really important to a lot of companies, especially to Tesla and Elon Musk, that more Bitcoin be produced cleaner, without the use of greenhouse gases. Or if it were using greenhouse gases, one of the biggest, effects of mining, if you've never mined Bitcoin before, is that these miners produce these computers that are created specifically to mine Bitcoin. They produce large amounts of heat. Now, if you were to recycle that heat and use it to heat your home, instead of paying a gas bill to heat your home, you're securing the Bitcoin network, mining Bitcoin, and at the same time, you're warming your home in the winter. So a lot of people started to take very unique approaches to this problem, and now I believe, if I'm not mistaken, more than 55% of Bitcoin is being produced clean, using clean energy, or being recycled, which also assists with it being clean, because then you're not double spending on the carbon side. These are some really interesting topics and really cool things for us to discuss and to look at in terms of the future and the kind of world that we're going to be living in, because every day, every decision that we make, we're forming that world, and we're creating that future. So I really look forward to making these videos every week. I'm going to try every week. It can get really difficult juggling between work and this. It requires a lot of research, but I will try to do every week, hopefully every Thursday, if not on Fridays. And then we have to edit the videos as well. But I do hope you enjoyed it. I hope this wasn't too long and drawn out. But I hope there was a lot of information that you learned, or maybe you're more interested in, and you can give me the feedback, and we can definitely create a space rich for discussion. So I look forward to seeing you next week and making more of these videos, and I appreciate you for tuning in. So I also would really appreciate it if you liked them, subscribed if you haven't. That way you can continue to get more of my videos and learn with me as we go along. Thank you very much.